Okay, now before you go doing all this, you should always make sure that your battery is disconnected, which I've already done so. I'm going to reach up under here with the 14 millimeter. I'm going to use the boxed end. I'm going to stick a glove on my hand just to protect it from all the dirt because I'm messing with the camera right now, which makes it a little more inconvenient. I'm able to sneak my arm up here, get onto this fixing nut, and then you want to keep pushing and get it really loose. I've already pre-loosened this here just to help with the timer in the video. I'm doing this here in the auto parts parking lot. And you want to come up, one of the things you want to make sure is you can unplug both of these just so that they're out of your way and you don't mess them up. And this part here, typically a flashlight would come in very handy so you can see what you're aiming for. Myself, I'm not using one just because I've done it so many times. And I'm going to come around down under here. And see, of course, I'm having a problem finding it now. There it is. That's why it's easier if you look down there with a flashlight, you'll see the top of the nut, exactly what you're going for. After you've loosened the fixing nut, this is the adjusting nut, which is going to release tension on the belt itself. That's one of the first things you want to do before you go messing with the bolts on the bracket, because you need to free that tension. If you start loosening any of the bolts in the bracket first, it's not good because then it's going to be putting torque on them in the wrong sense. And it's almost loose enough. And I got the belt slipped off. Just push it down out of the way. You can leave that there if you have the extra one, which I have the extra 12 millimeter just for that. And then you're ready to start focusing on the actual bracket that holds it in place. That's it. Just crack these 12 millimeters loose. Now I'm going to the box wrench and the 14 millimeter here. And I just want to crack them both loose to begin with. Ooh, that's in there tough. Then you want to go and unplug this plug, or in this plug there. Now if it's really hot, you do want to be careful not to stick that up against the hot stuff. It'll melt the plastic very quickly. Then I'm going with the 10 millimeter. Now the one that's first visible has that little black covering on it. Once you get the black covering up, you can access that. Then there's just down below it and to the left, there's another 10 millimeter bolt which holds the cabling in place to keep from too much tension being put on the cable itself, because it wants to pull down if you don't have this in there. Get that 10 millimeter out and just take the nut off of this, and you're able to slide that free. You can push it down out of the way. Now I'm going back to the 12 millimeter. Actually, that's not a good idea. I should go with those 14 millimeters first, I believe. This is the short top one. And there's 4 bolts, the 2 14s down here and the 2 12s there, that literally hold the bracket into place. This one is the time-consuming one. It's really long. There are a lot of threads to work. And if you undo the motor mount and jack up the motor a little, not using the oil pan, it'll definitely make it easier to get to, because Of course, I have the air conditioning in here, and it looks like the little Freon pipes or whatever are in the way. They keep you from really sticking a socket unless you've got some kind of super short socket. Since the car is still a bit hot from me driving it out here, I'm using the gloves to protect my skin. If I'm at home, the car is not going to have been running before I had to come up here to change it, but I had no other alternative at the time to get it done today. And this is the time-consuming one. Like I said though, if you jack it up, if you undo the motor mount, which is just a pain to me, I believe, it does make it easier to get this bolt here with a regular socket. But if you're patient with this one bolt, it's definitely, in my mind, less of a hassle than dealing with the motor mount and then jacking it up. Because that's the only bolt I feel it's necessary to undo the motor mount for, is this one here for convenience. Although I do believe the manual says that you are supposed to remove the motor mount and bracket. Of course, I've changed it so many times. It's got to be in there tight, doesn't it? Every now and then I can reach down there and turn it a couple turns. Not right now. I don't really have the 12 millimeters backed off, I just have them cracked loose. I'm not sure if I would have left them tight first, if that would have helped or not. Or maybe even left the top 14 millimeter in. I think I took the bottom one out first last time, which made it easier to get it out. So if you're doing this, you might want to try to remove this bottom one first. Leave the one just above it in, the short one. And might not have so much tension on the threads. I just threaded that top one back in, but maybe it did make it easier. So yeah, you want to remove the bottom one first. The long one first. That made it easier. I'm going to leave that top one in just a few threads while I get these 12 millimeters out of here. And I'm doing that just to make it easier on these threads as well. And sometimes this here up is in the way, sometimes down is in the way. It's probably better to tape these two plugs off out of the way. And the reason I took out the fan, took off these mounts, was allow myself to flex back the radiator some. I'm going to have to pause and reset.